Well, we had been married a couple of years and we were expecting our first child and everything had seemed to be going normally. And then I suddenly went into premature labor and it was scary for us because it was our first time being parents. Kyle was delivered and immediately they had to rush him off to the intensive care unit and he was 2 months premature. You know, we just expected Kyle to be kind of behind because he was premature, but at 6 months we did go back to a specialty clinic for premature babies. And at that time they thought, well, he wasn't holding his head up really how he was supposed to, and he was maybe crossing his legs when you kind of hold him up and maybe a little on the stiff side. So those were kind of signals to the doctors that there could possibly be something going on.
At the age of 2, Kyle's condition was confirmed by the doctors. He had cerebral palsy. It was the beginning of a long road for the West family.
Cerebral palsy, they think, is caused by a lack of oxygen to the brain, and that can happen with babies that are in utero or just at the time of birth or even slightly after birth.
I think we calculated it was 11 surgeries that he's had, but to see our son have to go through those things, to have to continually go through those surgeries, you know, as a father that can hurt. To see him have to deal with things that other kids didn't have to deal with, but at the same time I think that also made time for him to be contemplative and to think about things when he's stuck in a bed or a wheelchair that he probably wouldn't have thought of if he was able to run around and do sports and things.
Though Kyle had a significant physical disability, he also began showing a unique character at a young age.
We weren't sure, you know, at what level he'd be able to speak or what age he'd start speaking, but when he did, it became very evident very quickly that he spoke more than just simple words. He was doing full sentences. He conversed with adults way more than the children of his same age in his classes. People would meet him, and I think it throws people off sometimes. He'd be this little kid in a wheelchair. You know, he's small, he's all strapped into this wheelchair, and he comes up to people and just starts talking to them like he's an adult. I think it blew a lot of people away to see him just conversing so well at such a young age.
One of those who was impressed was Bob's employer, Dr. James Dobson, who was briefly introduced to Kyle at age 7 at a company picnic. Nobody could have predicted what would happen next.
They interacted there and Dr. Dobson said, hey Kyle, you know, I'd really like to talk to you more, so can you come and see me in my studio and we can just talk a little bit more? And Kyle thought that would be great, so that's what we wound up doing.
Their conversation was broadcast nationally on James Dobson's radio program.
Do you think God has a purpose for your life, Kyle?
I know God has a purpose for my life, but I know it's not going to be anything too important.
How do you know that? You don't know what God has for you.
What would God do with a boy with cerebral palsy?
Oh, Kyle, he can do wonderful things with you.
I know, it's just there are billions of other kids out there. Why would he want to use me?
Well, at first, hearing him just say, you know, how can God use a boy like him? And, you know, it just kind of breaks your heart as a mom. But I think it just makes such a big impact in that God has used him so much.
In fact, God was just beginning to use Kyle.
The thing that I was embarrassed to have said was what most reached people in that entire broadcast. That was the moment that if I had chosen, would have just been edited right out of the whole conversation. That was the moment God chose to use to reach people. I remember being really embarrassed at the time. Like, I had no idea where that response had come from. But I honestly believe that it was, you know, the leading of the Holy Spirit to open up an opportunity to really just display His glory, because that was the moment in the conversation that really God used to inspire people.
The public outpouring after the broadcast was immediate.
I got an email one day and they said, where do you want us to send the letters that are coming? And I thought, letters? Oh, you know, a couple letters, oh, you can just give them to me. And they gave me an envelope full of these letters, and we started looking through them and seeing that, you know, people who had disabilities saying how they really felt God impacting their life through Kyle, and even a letter from a man who had supposedly pulled over on the side of the road and given his life to Christ because of my 7-year-old son. We were just blown away by the impact that our son has had. And none of that would have been possible without his disability.
It wouldn't be the last time Kyle would be in the public eye. A few years later, he would have an impact on millions more people, appearing in the Truth Project and putting a face to the voice that had touched so many.
I don't know.
I don't know. Still lost right now.
Meaning of life, that's an easy one. That's an easy one. Philosophers throughout the ages have searched for the meaning of life, and the irony of it is that we so easily know the answer as Christians.
That was another moment where the Holy Spirit, in His divine determination, chose to touch someone that would have been completely incapable of glorifying Him separate from His intervention. And He took a little chubby-cheeked 13-year-old kid with the cracky voice thing right in the middle of the turbulent years of puberty, I guess, and just turned it into something that really, really ministered to people. But I can be in just completely unexpected situations and people will be like, hey, you're that guy from that video with Del Tackett, and I'll be, yeah, that was me.
Now 18, Kyle has embarked upon a brand new challenge. A college career, 1,600 miles from home at Patrick Henry College, a rising Christian institution in Virginia.
I mean, we knew academically, I mean, he's very gifted. That's not his problem. The problem is the life skills. And so for us to just, we were driving away from Patrick Henry, and I said to Sue, I turned to Sue and I said, did we have to experiment so far from home?
How are you?
Doing good, how about you?
There was a question, especially with my parents, I think, of whether I was actually going to be able to survive on my own, just, you know, basic survival. Hey, guys. Can I get I used to tell people that the fear was that I was going to call 2 weeks in, you know, with my hand just barely able to reach for my phone under a pile of my own laundry, just kind of like, help, can't eat, haven't eaten in 2 weeks and need to, come dig me out. I want to go home, But I've been able to adjust to, and I feel like things are going really well. Hey, Claire. Doing good. How about you? I'll be right back. I'm just going to go grab a drink.
He deals with it very well. It takes him longer to do certain things than it takes other people. It takes him longer to get from here to, the dining hall or to a class. It takes him longer to get dressed, or longer to just go to the bathroom, take a shower, than a normal person. But he does very well with it, and he doesn't ever complain. He's very comfortable with who he is. He sees it as a blessing from God.
It feels good. If I had 2 words to describe Kyle, I think they would be courageous and resilient. Because it takes courage just for him every day, just to do the things that we take for granted. And yet he continues to do them and continues to rise above them.
And so now Kyle West and everyone else has an answer to the question he asked James Dobson when he was 7 years old. What can God do with a boy with cerebral palsy?
He can do absolutely everything he wants to do with a boy with cerebral palsy. And sometimes that won't look like what we expect. There are times occasionally when I miss maybe not being able to, say play football with the guys or something. But at the same time, it's just, how can I dwell on those opportunities that I don't have when God has blessed me with so many opportunities that I do have? And those opportunities that He blesses me with out of my weakness are so unique and so special to me that I could not trade God's plan for my life for anything else.